What is up, DTube Steam blockchain? So today I want to talk a little bit about that virtual reality is not a new technology. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. So people think virtual reality is a new technology. But if you look at how you perceive the whole universe through your eyes, that is already virtual reality. And I notice it especially with these new smartphones and when you have these zoom functions and you can zoom in on stuff. For example, if I use my rear camera on the Galaxy S10 Plus and if I'm out walking and I zoom in on some animal or a tree or something like that, if I zoom in really close, what you sort of start to see happen is the more you zoom in, if you max out the zoom, you see that it's almost like you can mainly see the energy. So so the physical that you're seeing, suddenly it just looks like energy. Like you can see how it's like moving around, or it's something moving around. I'm not sure how that works exactly, but you can kind of see it's kind of wonky. You can kind of see that um it's like a video game where like what you're seeing, what you're perceiving is not actually the way it is. And you can see that if you zoom in close enough on anything, it starts to look kind of strange. So, and that's because it's just energy, right? It's energy, and our eyes, the way we are perceiving things is really not how it is. So we are already perceiving like a virtual experience of energy, right? Uh, so so I talked about it in the past, that just energy and consciousness, everything, and and it's something that if you have that, if you just have the energy, right, you have just like a video game, or I would even call a better virtual reality game than the so-called virtual reality that people are talking about. That there's a lot of people talking about, oh, we're gonna have some virtual reality in some kind of a screen or something like that. But if you look at the real virtual reality that humans are manufacturing with each person, how they're perceiving things different compared to another human, I mean, that's really the real virtual reality. So virtual reality is not really a new technology. And these devices, these kind of magical devices that we're sort of using, I mean, this is clearly some magic stuff, right? It's clearly some magic stuff. Or, well, maybe we shouldn't call it magic stuff. It's just that we did not know. Like, you realize that it's not really fixed. Like, what we thought was like, oh, this is how it should be. We just increase our levels of ignorance, right? So I heard, for example, a podcast that was kind of interesting where they were talking a little bit about, oh, whoa, we're living in the best thing ever, and what is the coincidence of that? Well, the way I sort of look at that is you probably, even though we don't have any proof of this, but if you really look at it from an energetic perspective, then a person probably already was here in all those other time periods as well. But so that would sort of explain this thing where people think, oh, like, because if you really look at the odds that a person would be just in the exact time where you have this population explosion and this new technology and all this, and that they would just pop in here, and then all the other time it was like bad. You probably already was here, right? um, but that's another topic. But yeah, let's go back to this a little bit. So virtual reality, virtual reality. What is that gonna cause? What is it gonna cause when people's awareness increase that life itself is sort of like a virtual reality? Like, how is that gonna change? It's probably gonna be very interesting, because I think then eventually people is gonna have it in their awareness that they eventually are going to want to discover more, dig deeper into how energy is working and how they can look at life from a more energetic perspective. So this sort of 3D reality that is sort of written by mainly people's unconscious software, how your senses is recording everything, and you're writing your own unconscious software. You can also, of course, write it consciously, but most people are writing it unconscious. So that means that the so-called 3D reality is mainly an unconscious writing, which also means that, so you have these softwares going in humans, like they're doing with memory. And it means that the 3D reality that people are looking at uh, it sort of is fixed in many ways. It's fixed in a way where if you want to change it, you have to look at the energy perspective, like energy mastery, and that's what you're seeing with smartphones, how they're becoming energy machines, that you can feel that it's just an energy device eventually that's just going to do everything, yeah, that you want it to do, and it's going to do it better than you. And how I think that's eventually gonna change the way people look at like the 3D world. So the thing, I think many people look at it, they look at it more in like physical terms. They don't look at it as energy, because energy sounds super weird or super strange or something like that. But it's not really that strange, to be honest. But it's like it's just the perception that humans have. It's like when they can feel something in their hand, or when they can see something, usually they do not, like, it looks more like that, looks more real than that it would just be energy, right? And and when people are looking at it in more material or physical terms, they may feel a bit more stuck, or I don't know. I mean, it can be both. But my main point here is eventually that I think that people are gonna realize that if they want to tweak something in the 3D existence, maybe spend more time with energy and consciousness than trying to sort of convince a person here and there, because that's probably it's gonna be a very slow process, and you're gonna have to fight against someone's unconscious software. And there's a lot of fighting I think humans are doing, trying to sort of, like, you see a person, you see their unconscious software, and then you sort of see how they try to convince another person about something, and sort of, it's almost like people think that it's almost like they think, I don't know, I mean, people's, it's just that people have to have more awareness about the energy stuff without having it sound super pseudo science, right? Because a lot of people take advantage of that, right? So it sort of is like this energy stuff is sort of something a person has to dig deeper into themselves to have an understanding of it. Because if you're trying in the 3D world to sort of convince someone about it or talk to someone else about it, They're probably just gonna get lost or get entangled. Like this is something that you probably also notice a lot. It's very easy to get entangled with other people and their stuff and things like that. But I think eventually people are gonna realize that they can tweak the virtual reality experience. Like when they realize that sort of the real world sort of is virtual reality, like a simulation in some ways, and when they realize the energy aspect of it, it may actually free them up a bit more, where they understand that they don't have to seek so much on the outside to do something or be so ego sensitive. They can see it more from an energetic perspective and a, let's say, dimensional perspective. And I think that's going to eventually create better virtual reality for everyone and just a more playful world. Because when you sort of realize that it's energy and the virtual reality is an old technology, you realize you can play around with this a lot. You can shape things into the way you want it. You realize that language itself is like an art form, and that it's it's quite mystical in many ways. So yeah, I mean, a little bit all over the place here, but I wanted to talk a little bit about it. That virtual reality, it's an old technology, nothing new here, uh, and but you can still remix and have fun. Yeah, have a great day, DTube and the Steam blockchain. Bye bye.